Sir, I also rise to make my contribution on this bill. And first, Mr. Speaker, I was mentioned, I think, adversely by Senator Cheruiyot. He touched my family and he may create an impression that other than my dear wife, Jacqueline, I have another family. I want to declare that I'm a loving husband to one wife, Jacqueline, and I have no any other wife, Senator Cheruiyot. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I wish Senator Veronica was here to listen to me. You know, this bill was before my committee last Parliament as the chairman of JLAC. Before I was succeeded by my good friend, Senator Sigei. And the provisions that are here, I mean, almost lifted from what was in that law, were very interesting. You know, we did public participation, Mr. Speaker, and we thought some of these provisions would get support of women. But it was during COVID, and we put in stakeholders together, and we said, now let's collect views from the public. And you'll be surprised, Mr. Speaker, that even on an issue like definition of who is a child was very heated. And we had even National Council on Women, is that called NGEK? We had a feeder in the meeting. We had many women organizations. And it's not easy to convince all women across the board to accept the child. Very, very interesting proposals came to the table. And I hope maybe Senator Veronica can benefit from what is on archives, on the views that we received from the public. You know, like, what was interesting is what I heard from women who felt that we are trying to legislate for, you know, their husbands who may be keeping other women out there. And Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, despite their contribution, which I really appreciated, in protection of children born out of wedlock, because they were very clear, Mr. Speaker, that we cannot throw those children to the wilderness. But they were very clear, Mr. Speaker, that a proposal to include these other children should be so clear, Mr. Speaker, that a share of what goes to these children who are born outside should be a percentage. I mean, that was just a proposal. I'm not saying that's what was on the bill, but they were so clear, Mr. Speaker, that somebody was giving an example that if you have 5 children or 6 children born in a monogamous marriage, and this was coming from women, and they were of the view that if they have contributed with the husband in acquiring some property, then their children should get a higher share than the other one. They said, fine, we don't want those children to miss, but we need to be careful how we share this property. So I've no doubt, Senator Veronica, that you'll receive very interesting views. We were not able to even finalize the bill, so it died during last session. I remember somebody said, Mr. Speaker, that there are women who can be what I think they called good peckers. They say there's an animal that is used to good picking, good pecker, a good pecker. And they were giving an example like Senator Cheruiyot, you know, is in public limelight, his majority. Occasionally he has flown with a chopper to Kericho, and there could be some ladies admiring him somewhere, you know. And, you know, the proposal was that some of these, you know, beautiful ladies may be looking for Senator Cheruiyot, not because they want to be married to him, but because, according to them, they felt that we were bringing in place a law that was going to entice women to go after some men who, in quotes, are perceived to be well off in society. And therefore, they were saying they will go to Senator Cheruiyot not because they want to be second wife, but because they are feeling that the law that has come in place makes it very easy for them and their children to inherit. So this bill will get very interesting views when it goes to public participation. So Senator Veronica Maina, be prepared to receive
Senator John Kinyo, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, the Senior Council has a very good debate, but now I did not get the part of the woodpecker. Is it Senator Cheruiyot who is the woodpecker or the beautiful lady, Mr. Speaker?
The Speaker, from the views we received, the woodpecker is the woman who will be coming looking for Senator Cheruiyot to be the father of his children. It was very interesting. I mean, I hope when this public participation begins, many of you can...
Senator Crystal, do you have a point of order?
Thank you very much, Speaker. My good senator from Nyamira was doing so well until he implied that woodpeckers are usually women. Mr. Speaker, there are several women in this Senate, as an example, and we have property, we have a lot of investment that we've also made, and there can also be men who might come to woodpeck, and they do. They're called bentens, Mr. Speaker. So kindly, if they're papas, exactly. They come only for one reason and one reason only, and I would like the senator in his submission to kindly clarify that can be both men and women, not just women alone. I thank you.
You can see, Mr. Speaker, that's why I told you that the views that you'll receive from the public will be very interesting. Now, this is even another one, that it's not only the ladies, but there are also men who are waiting for the passage of this bill, and then they say, now, if I get a child with that good senator, then my children will be assured of inheriting some. That's the perception that came to the fore from the public. You know, many views. And I think it's good. It's a good debate, Mr. Speaker. It's good to have a law that is certain, so that as temptations come your way, you know beforehand that is the position in law. But then I have no answers to you, Senator Maina, but I hope that once you take this bill through a very intense public participation, you'll be able to come up with a bill that is acceptable to both the men and the women. As you have heard, it cuts both ways. There are men who may benefit and women who may also benefit. The other point, Mr. Speaker, that I found very attractive to me is this clause that talks about intermeddling. Mr. Speaker, if you have heard stories on widows especially, I don't know about widowers, but I know stories of widows who go through horrendous experiences. Mr. Speaker, you lose your spouse in Nairobi or in Mombasa, and members of the family of your spouse arrive, and they want to start sharing property, Mr. Speaker, household items, and the like. So it's very good that this bill is trying to make it very clear, Mr. Speaker, that anybody who tries to intermeddle in a property of a deceased person risks facing criminal prosecution. When a person has lost a dear one, Mr. Speaker, and they're in that state of mourning, the best that we should do to such a spouse is to be sensitive, to be kind to them, to be understanding, not to take the laws as an opportunity for us to share the properties of a deceased person. So this is a good proposal. This one, I think, was not very contentious. It was bringing clarity to the law, and it's good to make it clear, the Speaker, that if your spouse dies, the personal effects are left to you as a spouse, Mr. Speaker. There's no need of third parties coming in to try to take over properties that have been left behind by a deceased person. I think the issue of adopted children, the Children's Act addresses this very ably. It's good to know, Mr. Speaker, that once a child has been adopted, he becomes a child. The word adopted is just used for a legal process. The moment a child is adopted through a legal process, by all intents and purposes, you become a child of that parent who has adopted you. And it's good that the law of succession properly recognizes them as children. The other issue that Senator Veronica will be interested to know is this idea of trying to amend Section 35 and try to make the rights of a widower and the widow to be applied equally. The Speaker, somebody gave an example of the culture in the Maasai community. And he said, if I lose, and these are not my views.
Senator Makueni and Senator Kavindo, please, want to hear the senator in silence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm saying just to understand how culture can really collide. There was somebody who gave us a view on cows, within the Maasai community. And, he could not understand what this law was trying to propose when it said that if you are a widower and you lose your wife, you had one wife, that if you marry, you lose your cows. The Maasai could not understand, because it was like, even if I was to marry another wife after the death of my spouse, the cows belong to me. So there is no way you can tell me that I will lose my cows. So I don't know how Senator Veronica Maina, when you appear before the Justice Committee, you will clarify some of these cultural issues that may have a clash with the proposals in the law. But I know where you are coming from. This is an era where the boy child and the girl child wants to be treated equally. So the intention is good. You want the benefits that accrue to the widower should accrue also to the widow. If there are properties that will pass over after a process happens, the law is simply telling us, Mr. Speaker, that if a widow remarries and the property, the life interest ceases and passes over to the children, the same should be applicable to the widower. Literally speaking, what happens to a wife who becomes a widow, gets another man, and marries. And the same should happen to a man who becomes a widower, but gets another woman and remarries. I think the law is just trying to bring equality to the spouses in a marriage. Again, I don't know what answers you will get, but that was a very, very interesting and emotive discussion about how you deal with the properties of a surviving spouse. Mr. Speaker, I don't have a lot to say on Clause 6, because Clause 6 is simply trying to give us how to distribute the property of a deceased person in the event that there are no children left behind, and automatically such a property should go both to the father and mother. I think what I had women telling us that time, I don't know whether that's what has been happening. What the women were saying is that there has been this tendency of mzee saying, if my daughter or child has died, then I should be the one taking the property. But the agitation was that that property should be inherited by both the father and the mother of the deceased child. I hope I'm getting it correct, Veronica. And I think that's a fair one. In this era, both mother and father should enjoy the fruits of their labor. If you lose your child, if they don't have anybody succeeding them, that property should be shared equally between the mother and the father. I don't think that is controversial. And then it is giving another, a chronology of the people who should benefit so that we don't have disputes. Finally, as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, it's also it's good to tell Kenyans also that you can take advantage and write a will. You know, this law is addressing people who die intestate. But if you take advantage and write a will, then you avoid some of the disputes that could arise through succession. And I must pass my condolences to the late Justice Majanja, but though a fairly youthful judge, he had not even hit 50, but the moment he passed on, very untimely at that very, very productive age, his will was with a lawyer. You know, he's a judge, but he had already written his will, and the lawyers came out and say, here is the will of the judge. His will was that he be cremated within 24 hours or within the shortest time possible. It's a good thing. Alternatively, Mr. Speaker, you can also have a process of registering your property in a manner that if one of you passes on, really there is no controversy or going through the harrowing experience of doing succession. Succession can be, a bit complicated at times. Go to the chief, let the chief write for you a letter, giving the name of your spouse, the children. You have to get searches of all the properties. It's tedious. But if you have a joint registration, if Veronica and Mr. Maina, God forbid, if they have a joint property registered jointly, if one of them passes on, the property automatically reverts to the surviving spouse. It's one way of avoiding all these, problems of dealing with succession. So it's good also to ask Kenyans, take advantage on the land laws that are in existence. You can have a joint registration where the property will automatically revert to the surviving spouse. So I look forward to engaging with this committee. I think I will also create time to appear before Sigei committee to give my views and proposals on this bill. I hope you will complete the task that we were not able to complete as a committee in the last parliament, so that we can have clarity on this law of succession, and make sure that you invite both male and female to appear before you and give their views. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.